Hello, I am Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In this lesson, we will go through Unit 1 of Consumer Psychology, which is the physical environment. In this video, we can take it as part 1. I will go through the first 3 subtopics in the physical environment. One is about types of store exterior design. One is about interior design. And the last one is about the North et al. Study. When I say I will be going through these topics, you can take it as revision or a supplementary lesson for what you are learning from the textbook. I want you to know right at the beginning that I will not be going through these topics thoroughly. It's more of a lesson to clarify your concepts. If you want to score high grades in the paper, if you want to score A grade, you will have to learn from the textbook thoroughly. Do not rely only on this lesson. Okay, so having said that, let's begin with the first topic, types of store exterior design. Within this topic, we have an example study by Mowrer et al. If you want to know the difference between a case study and an example study from the point of view of how you should be learning them, you can watch some of the other videos on my channel which are meant for exam preparation. In this video, all I can tell you is that an example study you do not have to study in as much detail as a case study. You have to know summaries of example studies. Okay, there are many points on the presentation. I will not be going through all of them because my intention is to make a brief video. So I will be taking you through the main points. First of all, physical environment refers to the surroundings of a store, which includes both what is on the inside or the interiors and what is on the outside or the exteriors. When we talk about something physical, we are referring to the non-social type of environment. So we are talking about literally what objects are there on the inside and the outside, or how things are placed, how the layout is made, where the store is situated, those type of things. Now, in the first topic, we are looking at exteriors. If we consider the exterior or the outside of the store, it is the first place that you come across even before you enter the store. So we can consider it as the first point of contact. What you see on the outside of the store can determine whether you would enter the store at all or not. So that is why it is extremely important. Because right from entering the store to whether you will make an actual purchase because of the impression that you have created right at the beginning, all sorts of consumer behavior can be determined by the exterior. Still, we see there is a big research gap. How many studies should have been done in this area have unfortunately not been done. Let us now consider which are the main elements in the exterior of a store, or what all you can say things are there in the exterior. Broadly speaking, there are 3 categories of objects in the exterior. One are objects at the store front. These include entrances, windows and building properties. Literally, what type of an entrance is there? Is it wide? Is it big? Is it narrow? 2, what types of windows are there? Full-sized windows, small windows, and even building properties such as its orientation, direction, location. All of this comes within storefront. Then there are window displays. Here we are not talking about the windows themselves, rather what is there on the window display. Window displays are see-through, they are made of glass. So stores can put up posters there of any promotional offers like discounts that they are offering, any limited stock which is there, anything new that has arrived. They could even keep replicas or models of objects which are available inside, or they could even have full items, new items on the outside on display. As they've mentioned, these are critical for small retailers. What we mean by this is those smaller businesses which cannot afford to have their buildings in very good locations or cannot afford very lavish storefronts. They can still have good window displays at reasonable prices, because literally they can just keep new items on the window display for which they would not even have to spend anything extra to build anything special for the window display. And then there's landscaping in the exterior. Landscaping refers to plants, vegetations like flowers, bushes, even artificial plants which are there. Even that could come within landscaping. Landscaping is found to elicit positive emotional responses in consumers. I haven't discussed the PAD model, but in case you've learned it, you can link it to the dimension of pleasure in that model. It also arouses people, so people feel more pleasant and they feel more emotional positively when they look at good landscaping. Especially this is found for city dwellers who don't get to see vegetation very commonly in their surroundings. Okay, so having seen all of this, let us now come to the Mowrer et al. Study. Mowrer et al. Were trying to investigate whether two elements of the exterior, window displays and landscaping, can influence firstly what we were just looking at, pleasure and arousal. Pleasure meaning whether people are literally feeling happy or pleasant or not, and arousal meaning how much energy or excitement is activated in them. Both are expected to be good when window displays are attractive and landscaping is present. Liking of the store, whether people would like the store because of good window displays and landscaping, and whether they would intend to purchase items, not actual purchasing, but whether they would express a desire to purchase things. The methodology in the study was simple. Participants had to read about certain stores. They had to read descriptions of stores. 4 different store descriptions were used. Very simply, this was manipulated. In one description, there was landscaping but no window display. In another description, there was both landscaping and window display. And by window display, I mean something good was there on the window. In this study, it was a clothing store, so I think jeans were displayed on the window. In one scenario, there was no landscaping, but there was a window display. And in one scenario, there was neither a window display nor landscaping. So you can see very simple permutations have been created of all possibilities. So participants had to read either one of the descriptions. It was an independent measures design. And then they had to answer a questionnaire which asked them about all those dependent variables which we saw earlier. So after reading the description, did they have an intention to purchase, did they like the store, and so forth. Results showed that in the description, if there was landscaping and display, window display, liking did not increase significantly. Pleasure and arousal did not increase significantly. What we mean by this is the expectation was there that people will feel pleasant and aroused, but the results were not significant, not large enough to apply to the population. Secondly, it did increase liking though. People did express that they liked the store. And patronage intentions. Patronage intentions means acting like good patrons and recommending the stores to others. That increased. People expressed on the questionnaire that they liked the store more if there were window displays and landscaping, and they expressed an intention to tell the ones they know to visit that store. And there was also positive correlation between liking, mood and purchase intentions. So participants who expressed more liking of the store exterior, they were more likely to purchase something. At least they showed a desire or an intention to purchase. The last 2 results are significant, means they were applicable to the population. What we can conclude from this study is that displays and landscaping can really help in positive consumer responses. Let us now look at an evaluation quickly of exterior design. When they ask for an evaluation in the paper, like in a 10 marker, definitely we can refer to Mowrer et al. Studies, strengths and weaknesses. One strength of the study was that they used quantitative data. Participants had to answer a questionnaire on which they gave ratings for all those dependent variables. That means they did an objective analysis of the exteriors. The researchers did not show any biases in interpreting whether landscaping and window displays are effective or not. They had very objective or factual results, which increases validity. If you want to know how to present a 10 marker, because right now I'm just explaining, I'm not explaining to you from an answer writing point of view. You can visit my other video in which I have explained how to put down these points in a 10-marker answer. One weakness of the study, however, was ecological validity was lacking. You can understand for yourself, like you can empathize. If you just had to read about a store versus visit an actual store, your experience would be very different. So just reading about a store might not be sufficient to increase pleasure and arousal. But who's to say what if participants really visited the store? In that case, maybe even pleasure and arousal would increase. So the findings seem unrealistic and unlikely to generalize to real settings. One issue which is very relevant here is application for the entire exterior design. Like we noted in one of the points, especially small businesses can really benefit from making simple window displays to attract customers and definitely boost their profits, because more the customers that enter, because they are attracted to the exterior, more likely that purchases will be made. At least some of them will purchase, so profits will increase. Another thing is that if stores invest in exterior landscaping and they get some skilled designers such as window dressers who can make nice window displays, this will be possible for little larger businesses, then they can really improve their stores' attractiveness. So they can hire experts who can give them good exteriors to make their stores attractive to consumers. In terms of issues and debates, if we look at cultural differences, especially if we refer to Mowrer et al. Study, such studies have been conducted in the West. In the West, maybe people are more attracted to things like landscaping on the exteriors because West is highly urbanized. In more non-urbanized cultures, like some of the Asian cultures, maybe people would not be very attracted to a store because of landscaping, because they see landscaping anyways. It's nothing unusual or particularly attractive to them. Another consideration is that Western cultures are individualistic. So if you look at the Mowrer et al. Study, there was a display of a mannequin on the window. If a similar display is to be made in a collectivist culture, there it might not be very appreciated, because collectivist cultures can be a little traditional in terms of clothing. So they might not appreciate Western wear, especially if Western wear is a little revealing or little short clothes are being displayed on the mannequin, things like that. Not only that, in individualistic cultures, overall we find that there is good response to visual merchandising. People do get attracted by what is there on the exteriors and they enter stores on that basis. In collectivist cultures, budgets, buying things for the family might take precedence over what is found personally visually attractive to a person. So again, the findings would not apply to those cultures. So there are many possibilities of cultural differences in this topic. Overall, what we can say in terms of cultural differences is global chain stores, stores which have their branches in different countries, should be very careful to cater to local expectations, whatever is desired in the particular culture where their store is located, so that they can encourage positive approach behavior in consumers and not unintentionally arouse avoidance. Like the example I just gave, if a mannequin with revealing clothes is to be placed in a traditional culture, rather than attracting consumers, it would repel consumers. So stores need to be careful not to use the same strategies for their exteriors throughout the world. They need to make culture specific considerations. Okay, so that is about store exteriors. Let us move to the next topic, store interior design. Here we have a simple example study by Vrechopoulos et al. Okay, in store interiors, the topic taken in our syllabus is layout of the store. Layout means the arrangement or the organization of the store. Let us understand which are the three arrangements or layouts. The first is a grid arrangement. Some departmental stores, okay, here largely we are referring to departmental stores or what we call supermarkets. They have grid organizations. What we mean by a grid layout is a rectangular layout with shelves placed next to each other. The aisles which are there in the departmental store are placed in a very regular fashion, in a rectangular manner. I strongly recommend either the book by Professor Roberts for this or the book by Professors Russell et al. Very good pictures are given of these layouts. I think they're from the original study by Vrechopoulos et al. They really help you to understand better. I have not displayed those images here. You can find them in the textbook. So you'll be able to see visually exactly what a grid layout looks like. Now what is good about a grid layout is because the organization is in such a predictable manner, people can easily shop around quickly. People are easily able to find whatever they are looking out for because they know that the aisles are in a certain order. Generally in these stores, the aisles are categorized also. They are classified. So one aisle might be for groceries, another one might be for luxuries. So people are easily able to locate what they want, and so those who are looking for saving time, who want to make quick shopping trips, it is very suitable for them. Then there is racetrack layout. These are entertaining type of layouts. They are meant to entertain or please people. These have themed areas and a designated route. Why we call them racetrack is because just like in a racetrack, you have a definite start and finish point, and you have to follow one particular course to reach from start to finish. Same way, these stores are designed in a way that you have to follow a particular course to reach the end. You cannot exit anywhere wherever you want. So that gives an entertaining experience to shoppers, though that makes for a lengthy route. Still, it is something that we can say is filled with unpredictability. You don't know what's going to come next. You just keep on following the route wherever it takes you. So people like this type of exploration. It is not meant for shoppers who want to save time or who are looking for quick purchases. It's meant for those who just want to have a fun time. And then there are free-form layouts. From the name only we can understand there's no particular organization to these layouts. They are asymmetrical. It's up to the designer of the shop what they feel, how much room should be given to which type of products. They might dedicate bigger aisles to some types of products and smaller ones to others. They might not even follow regular classifications like having one aisle for groceries and another one for, say, clothing. Rather, they would mix up the two if they feel that is appropriate. Or they might keep say food items very far apart from each other in separate aisles, whatever they deem appropriate. So it's free form, it's like free organization. It can lead to longer shopping times because predictability again is low, but it can be interesting to some extent. Not very entertaining as such, but it can really capture attention of shoppers wherever the shop designer has intended to capture it by making certain aisles or certain shelves really stand out from others. So it can help in targeted type of sales. Now these are physical store layouts, means stores which we actually visit. These have these type of layouts, but when a study was done in 2004 by Vrechopoulos et al., at that time online stores had started coming in, and these researchers wanted to see in virtual stores, meaning online stores, e-commerce type like Amazon, how these layouts can be adapted. These same grid, racetrack and freeform layouts which are found in physical stores, how they can be adapted to virtual or online stores. A very good explanation of this is in Russell et al. Textbook, though we don't need to know it for the exam. They've really explained what a grid layout means when it comes to a virtual store. For example, they have said that a grid layout means categories will be displayed on the first page of a site like Amazon, and then we have to click on whichever category we want, and that will take us right into that category while removing the others. A freeform layout would be the one in which we could have a search button on the home page, and so we could reach wherever we want. And a racetrack layout would be having like 2 tabs or 2 options on every page, and then having to select only one, which then keeps on taking us further into different categories. We have no control over which categories we will be led to from the main page. So these type of things are very well explained in that textbook. I strongly recommend you go through it so that you understand the Vrechopoulos et al. Study fully. So what Vrechopoulos et al. Aimed to do was to see whether these 3 store layouts would get similar responses from consumers virtually as they get physically. For example, would grid layout be found to be time saving and highly organized even if it's adapted virtually, just like it is found to be physically? So these researchers did a simple laboratory experiment. They had 120 participants from UK and Greece. So they've represented different cultures. They made participants view all the 3 layouts and to rate them in terms of usefulness, ease of use and entertainment value. Each of the layouts had to be rated on each of these parameters. And they also recorded how much time consumers gave shopping in each of the layout. So that's like a 4th dependent variable, the other 3 on rating scales. Results showed that unlike in a physical store, when it came to virtual store, freeform layout was taken to be very useful rather than grid layout. It was also taken to be entertaining rather than the racetrack layout, which is found to be entertaining physically. Grid layout was taken to be easier to use virtually compared to a freeform layout, which is found to be easier to use physically. And finally, racetrack layout caused people to spend a lot of shopping time, perhaps because they couldn't reach their destinations easily. And there was no particular rating on, like a high rating on its entertainment value virtually, as we would expect from responses that it gets physically. So what we can conclude from this study is the virtual shopping experience when it comes to layouts is very different from the physical shopping experience. And that is why virtual shop designers need to really think about what consumers would prefer virtually and design accordingly, and not rely on just the done type of physical layouts for their virtual stores. Let's quickly look at an evaluation of the Vrechopoulos et al. Study. Again, if they're asking interior design, you can definitely give an evaluation of this study. Firstly, the study has very good ecological validity, and students really tend to confuse here. They feel it has poor ecological validity because it was done online. The fact is they wanted to see response to online stores only. They did not want to generalize to physical stores. So definitely if you want to see responses to online store and that is what you expose participants to, it's very realistic. So there was very good ecological validity. But there are weaknesses. One, there was only quantitative data. So ratings wise, we know participants liked freeform layout the best. But we don't know the reasoning behind it. We don't get any insights. What was so special about certain layout that made it easier to use or more entertaining than another? That is not very clear. And then we are exploring something like virtual stores are being seen for first time. This was the time around which they were coming up. That time we really need to know in details what are consumers' responses, because we are at the exploratory phase. So ratings or quantitative data is not sufficient. Also, there was lack of qualitative data. This is a repetitive point. Actually, we can just collapse it with the previous. Overall, if we look at research into store interiors, we see again there is possibility of cultural differences. No doubt 2 cultures were represented, Greece and UK. Still, many different cultures are there, traditional ones, Asian ones, which were not represented. So we can't be sure people would respond in the same way. One example we can take is of the Asian culture of Japan, where people are very time bound, very particular about time. There may be, even for a virtual store, they would be looking for something quicker to access, which could be grid layout rather than freeform layout for them. Maybe time saving would be a very big parameter, or what do we say, defining factor for them, for which layout they like the most, rather than ease of use, which was found in the West. So such possibilities are there, which could count as a weakness. Also, in terms of reductionism versus holism, the findings are very reductionist, because the assumption is that layout is the only determinant of whether people find a store easy to use or entertaining and so forth, whereas right from the objects which are being shown, to the prices of the objects, to availability of new items, attractive items, to the experience overall, like we say, a gestalt experience of shopping virtually, which was not very common at that time. Anything could have made the virtual layout more entertaining or more attractive to the consumers? Why only the layout? So the assumption is very reductionist, that it's only layout which determine their ratings. Again, if we talk about application to everyday life, or what this implies for retailers, one, they should be careful in designing websites. Designing and redesigning websites is expensive. Like supposing they just look at physical stores, in that grid layout works best, so they make a grid layout in their virtual store. It might not work as well, which is why they might have to redesign it, and this can prove to be costly. So what they should do right from the beginning, they should do their research, which type of items they are selling, which virtual layout would be best for the items they are selling, and make that right from the beginning rather than having to redesign later. That would save them a lot of cost. And they can try to understand consumer behavior. Simply saying researchers, market researchers could go to different cultures, find out in different cultures, which unlike the Vrechopoulos study, which was not very culturally diverse, like just find out in different cultures which layouts are preferred by people, like we just saw the example from Japan, and then try to lay out their stores accordingly, according to the culture. Okay, now coming to the key study for this unit, Gnauth et al. Study. As you know, in every unit there's only one key study. Here it is Gnauth et al. In the beginning, I had told you that I'm not going to go through thoroughly, and to get a good grade, you will have to go through the textbook thoroughly. I cannot emphasize that enough when it comes to the key study, especially for the key study. You have to know every word that was there in the textbook. In the May 2024 people, lots of clinical psychology students went to the paper with overconfidence that textbook material is unnecessary, and they could not answer well for the key study by Freeman et al. So don't repeat that mistake. Make sure you learn the key study in and out very thoroughly. Take it very seriously. Again, I'm just going to be giving you an overview. This study is about how music can influence consumers in a restaurant. So the aim of these researchers was to see that if they play classical music in a restaurant, will it influence consumers to actually spend more? In most studies in consumer psychology, we see intended purchases is studied. Like intended purchasing is studied, not actual purchasing. So this is one of those rare studies which looks at actual purchasing, which is much more important than just a desire to purchase. Method was simple. It was a field experiment in an upscale restaurant or an upmarket restaurant. The study was conducted over 3 weeks. The independent variable was type of background music. What researchers did was, on a few days of these 3 weeks, they played classical music. On a few days they played pop music, and on some days they played no music, so that they can compare in response to which type of music consumers were spending more. In the textbook, there's a very important part of how counterbalancing was done for these 3 types of music. You must learn that properly. Counterbalancing directly associates with repeated measures design. And in this study, it was used to prevent a particular day of the week from influencing spending rather than the type of music being played. Very likely to be asked on paper 4, because like I said, counterbalancing is a very important research method concept. So you must know about counterbalancing and its evaluation very well for this study. The dependent variable was the mean spent per person on various items. In this study, when it comes to how much customers of the restaurant spent, not only they've looked at their total spent, they've looked at it food wise also, food category wise, like how much they spent on starters, on main courses, and so forth. Because it's a key study, you'll have to know all of the categories under which they measured spending. Their sample were 393 restaurant consumers. Last time you had seen, you have studied that ภิļāvin et al. Study. It was a field experiment. In that you've seen how field experiments have large samples because they resort to opportunity sampling. Whoever comes into that place becomes a participant of the study. Same is the case here, which is why they are having a large sample. So they were just people coming to the restaurant to eat as usual. They didn't know a field experiment was going on. They were just made a part of the study. So what researchers did was, on separate nights they played either of those 3 types of music. Other variables they made sure they kept constant, such as lighting and temperature and the type of menu which was served, so that those don't become the reasons for spending rather than music. And then they collected, with the help of a waitress, I think I'm not able to recall, but I think it's the researcher who posed as the waitress, so that people will not know that a researcher is recording their behavior. And she noted down how much consumers were spending. Means she just took a look at their bills and recorded it, so that they could analyze it further. Let's see what the findings were. They found that overall classical music did lead to more spending, especially on some categories of food such as starters, coffee, total food, and also overall spending, as compared to either the pop music or no music. Also, they did not find any significant difference on other categories that they were looking at. Simply saying, when it comes to classical music, no doubt it can increase spending, but more so on certain categories of food, not on each and every category of food. So restaurant can really look at which type of food they are trying to sell more and whether classical music will work for that category, and then only decide to play it in the background. So what we can conclude from this study is what we just saw in the result, that playing classical music can increase various types of spending. Let's come to an evaluation of this study. Because it's a key study, we have to know methodological, ethical, as well as issues and debates evaluation. We have to know lots of types of evaluation. So make sure you learn thoroughly from the textbook. I'll discuss the chief points right now. When it comes to methodological strengths of this study, not at all have looked at the effect of music on spending by eliminating possible confounding variables such as lighting, decor, etc. like we saw. That really increases validity because there's very strong control, internal validity increases. Also, we can say ecological validity is also good. This is a study with a rare combination of internal and external validity because they conducted it at an actual restaurant with real consumers who were unsuspecting of a study going on and who had come to dine as usual. So their behaviors were perfectly realistic. Coming to methodological weaknesses, one thing is that they did their study in an upmarket restaurant, which makes for only the high socio-economic group of people becoming participants in the study. So results might not generalize to little lower socio-economic status people or middle socio-economic status groups. Also, there is lack of knowledge about diners' musical preferences. They did control some of the situational variables, but when it comes to participant variables, because they could not randomly allocate people, neither could they match them. It was a field experiment. So we cannot say it can be that by chance on the days that classical music was being played, those consumers were in the restaurant who actually prefer classical music and that's why they spend more. So it would work only for these type of consumers, not for those who do not have a preference for classical music. When it comes to ethical considerations in the study, diners' privacy was respected, which is again little rare in a field experiment. So it's a very big plus. They just looked at the bills or the spend of the consumers. They did not try to watch how the consumers were eating or how they were interacting with their families. There were no cameras on the consumers. They were not being recorded in any way. So, and even the spend of consumers, if we see, confidentiality wise, in the report of the study they have given just the averages of expenditure. No particular family or individual has been identified in the report. So privacy and confidentiality were thoroughly maintained. But in terms of a weakness, there was no consent. People were not asked whether they would be okay with their spend being observed by the researchers. Still, it's not a very big concern in this study because a restaurant can be considered to be a public place and consumers in a sense should be willing. According to UK ethical guidelines, they should be prepared for being observed in a public place at any time. Okay, coming to application to everyday life, there's excellent application of this study. At least upmarket restaurants can expect to benefit from playing classical music. It's not a very costly or complicated intervention that they have to do. Music can be played very easily. Most restaurants will have a provision for playing music already. So they just have to make a selection of classical music and play that. And that simple intervention can really increase their profits. But we need more research to confirm these findings, because it's only in one particular upmarket restaurant that they have done this study, and we saw there is possibility of confounding by participant variables. So considering all of this, more research would be required to be confident about this application. Coming to issues and debates, reductionism versus holism. Music's effect can vary in the dining experience. So this is pretty reductionist, we can say. Just assuming that one type of music played throughout, and dining can take quite some time. So just one type of music, and music by itself can increase people's spending and nothing else. People's preferences can change through the time that they're dining also. That's what they're trying to say. Not only that, we need to take a holistic perspective, because music can interact with other elements. When it comes to classical music, somehow it gelled or it went along with other features of the restaurant, because classical music is generally considered to be upmarket, and the entire restaurant was upmarket. So undoubtedly its decor, its menu, the dressing of the staff, even the mannerisms of the staff must be very upmarket. So that's why classical music might work in conjunction with all these factors. But just by itself, playing classical music in any type of restaurant would not be a solution for increased spending. At least it doesn't look that way. So classical music being the only factor to drive sales is a very reductionist assumption. Finally, if we talk about determinism versus free will, the findings of this study are very deterministic. To assume that only because of playing certain type of music diners will spend more is like assuming they have no choice of their own, they have no willpower. What if a diner has made up his mind that he is going to spend reasonably on that night? So no type of music is going to deter him and make him spend more. Or what if a diner has certain preferences for food and intends to eat only that type of food on that night in which the study is being done? So can we say because of classical music he is buying that food, or is it that he's using his free will and deciding that that is what he wants to dine on that night? So free will has really been discounted in this study, and it's been very deterministic. Okay, that's it for I would call a review of the first 3 subtopics of this unit. My intention was to make a brief and quick video, but which should be thorough. That's why I've included evaluation as well. If you have any comments or questions about this video, please leave it in the comments box below. And thank you for watching. I'll try to upload the next part soon.